94.4% of Americans have 3 to 5 million investable assets, which means 99.6% would never be rich. Statistically, would never be rich unless we make changes to our financial habits and our investment strategies. Real estate is one of the most stable investments you can make, and it's also one of the highest producing returns you can get in investments. Over the past 50 to 70 years, the volatility of real estate is much lower than the stock market. However, the average real estate investment delivers 15.3% returns, while the stock is about 11% or so. But nonetheless, if you want to play in the financial game, you need to look into those three things: stocks or bonds or financial instruments, real estate, or business ownership. I can keep going, but let me pause here to see if anyone wants to ask any questions before I continue further.
Okay, I'll open the you guys ask questions to Victor or Kofo, and then I also have questions for them too. So I'll let anybody ask any burning questions first.
I have a question when it comes to the game of business. I understand that business can build wealth, but I think something that is somewhat of a conflict is the fact that many startup businesses don't succeed. So can you speak to how, what is it that business owners do to play the game well so that they do succeed and not end up in the majority of businesses that don't succeed, if you're really serious about building wealth?
That's a really hard one, so I'll let Kofo answer it.
I felt it coming.
I'll wait for the softballs.
Well, the one thing that I will say that makes the biggest difference is having a plan. Most businesses that don't succeed don't have a plan. They have an idea, right? They think something's going to work and they try to do it, but they don't think about what are the different risks that I'm taking? What are the potential pitfalls? A lot of business owners and entrepreneurs are very positive and optimistic, which is great. I hope that you never start a business thinking that it will fail, but you do have to think about what are the possible things that could happen. So the first step is having a solid plan in place and doing your research.
Thank you, Kofo.
Okay, so let me add to that as well. So first of all, running a business is very, very difficult. You mentioned it very well that most businesses fail in the first, I think, 3 years, even more in the first 5 years, and definitely in the first 10 years. Almost, I think only 2% of businesses go past 10 years. And like what Kofo was saying, a big part of that is that it's really difficult and there is no plan. There's no succession plan, and it's a lot of hustle. Most people are more hustlers than business people. And you can only hustle for so long before you either get burnt out or before you fail. So, however, though, if you want to start a business and you never start, then you've already failed, right? If you never started, you don't even know what to do, so you've already failed. So I encourage people, if they really want to do a business, it's really hard. It's like having a child. If you want to do it, you should do it, but it's a very high failure rate, like you said. Now, in essence, businesses is built into three parts. Business only has three components of it. And if you want to start a business, it's advisable to think of those three components at the beginning. The first component is sales, marketing, customers, getting clients. A lot of people say this is the most important part of business. However, I think all three are equally important. However, though, without customers, without sales, you have no business. You can't stay in business long without customers. So as a new business person, it's very important to focus on how to acquire that customer. How do you keep them coming? Because that's what gives you the revenue. The second part of business is, so we have sales, is the operations. So how do you fulfill customer needs? So in my industry, getting clients is the first part, but now I have to do a good service. I have to fulfill their needs, I have to get them the loans, I have to have an operations. So that's the operations part of business. So we need to think about that as well before going to businesses. The sales part, the sales and marketing, the operations. And then the third part is what we consider the finance and administration. So every business in all those three. So finance is, would you be in business for long, right? So if you open up a restaurant, do you have enough capital to keep it going? How's your administration? How is your HR? How is your IT? How is your payroll? How do you take care of your employees? That's when you call Kofo and you offer them, benefits and those kind of things. So those are the three key part of businesses. And most people, when they go into business, do not think of those three key parts critically. And it's more hustling. Hey, I see that Esther is making a lot of money doing whatever she's doing, so I'm going to get into that business. I'm going to hustle and work hard. You still need to hustle. You need to work hard. You need the hard work. You need the determination. But you have to look at those three strategic parts of business and put that in place. And always think about that if you want to be in business for the long haul.
Thank you, Victor and Kofo. And I also had a question like that. How does someone come up with this business plan that, how does someone come up with those strategies? Where should they seek advice? Where should they begin when coming up with this plan?
That's a good question. A lot of people do come to me and ask, like, oh, business plan, where do I go? Google. There's a lot of templates. You really just want to start. There's a whole bunch of templates. You don't have to find the perfect one. The main thing is you need to get the ideas down. You need to think about what are the strengths, what are the weaknesses, the opportunities, the threats, right? Who are your competitors? Things like that. So start to just write it out somewhere. Get a template from Google and start. The other thing is looking at people who have similar businesses to you. So like the example that Victor gave, let's say Esther's making a lot of money doing something. I should probably reach out to Esther. With what you guys are creating, especially in NAMC, I think that we're in this space in our community where we are trying to help each other. It's no longer about competing with each other, but how can we help each other grow? So don't be afraid to reach out to somebody who you see is doing something similar to what you're trying to do and find a mentor. Ask them, what is it that helped you to succeed, but also what caused you to fail? So those are the things that I would look at.
Follow-up question to your introductory remarks, Victor. I think you said that rich is defined as 3 to 5 million. Did you say net worth or was it investable assets?
So the answer to that question is investable assets. Okay. But in all honesty, it doesn't matter, right? So if you have 3 to 5 million net worth or investable assets, you're doing good. But the right answer is it's investable assets. And the formula behind that, if you're interested in knowing why I said that, or why I think that's the number, is that Kofo talks about what they call the rule of 4%. It's very popular in the financial industry that if you spend 4% of your investable net worth every year, you will never run out of money. So for perpetuity, you will never run out of money. Essentially, because people expect you to make 7% on returns on your money annually. 3% goes to inflation. You spend 4%. That's 7%. You should never run out of money. And I believe that at least for us in today's age, if you take home 150 grand to 200 grand a year, passive income from your investments that you never have to work for, you're rich. That's a lot of money to spend and to blow every year without having to work for it. So 4% of 3 million is 150 grand. 4% of 5 million is 200 grand. So somewhere in that range, if you have 3 to 5 million, you're spending 150 grand to 200 grand every year without having to work for it, you're rich, just like Kofo. Now, actually, I also want to answer the second question about how to, Kofo, what was the question that someone asked that you talk about the mentorship? think that was something about how to sustain, how to start a business,
How to start the business plan, where to
the
go to the
business,
business plan.
the business plan. Spot on, spot on. So yeah, Kofo nailed it right on the head. Having Google is a good resource to start a business plan. There's several books out there that talks about business and how to plan businesses. One of my favorites, or two of my favorites actually, is the E-Myth by Michael Gerber. That's a very, very good book. And then there's Traction by Gino Winkman. That's also a very good book as well. So I highly recommend those two books. Of course, there's a book called Success Made Simple by Victor Lofinmakin. Excellent book, bestseller. And I'm not just
Shameless
saying that
plug.
because
Shameless plug.
Shameless plug. And I'm not just saying that because I'm the author of the book. I really think it's a great book. I personally read it over and over again every year because there's just some very good principles in there. And one of the biggest principles, the first chapter actually, is called the 3Ds of life. And Kofo talked about mentorship as well. The 3Ds of life, we are always, every one of us are always in one of the 3Ds of life. The first D is called drifting. When you're just drifting about, you want to be successful, you want to do these things, but you're not making any progress towards it. Most of us live in the first D of drifting, where year after year after year, we have the same goals, but nothing is changing. I want to do this, because you're just drifting, and it's like being like a boat in water without any direction. You're not going anywhere. The second D is called driven, right? So usually you can tell people that are driven because they never have time. They're on a go, go, go. They live by their calendars, very hardworking, and they're making progress. Every year they're making progress. They're starting businesses. They're extremely driven people. We all know people like that are very driven. The problem with driven is that it's a lot of work. It's hard work. You're burning yourself out. You're the guy that starts a business, or the girl that starts a business and no longer in business 7 years from now or 5 years from now because you're burnt out. And then the third D of life is where we aspire to be, is called directed. And that's what Kofo was talking about finding a mentor. The biggest thing you can do in starting a business is finding a mentor. Hands down, no doubt. Almost every success, every big leaps that I've made in business, because someone that's been there before was guiding me, telling me, helping me avoid mistakes. Now, I'll give you an example. If you want to go, Esther, if you want to go into the software field and Bill Gates is your mentor, how quickly do you think you will succeed versus not having him as your mentor? I mean, it's a no-brainer, right? You're going to be there. They let you know exactly what to do, how to do it, what to avoid. So in order to get a good business plan, they can even help you with a business plan. They can let you know what to expect 5 years from now. So having that mentor, being directed, is extremely critical in building your business plan and planning your business.
Thank you. We got a question in the chat room that says, for those that aren't making six figures yet and don't have extra cash to invest or start a business, should they work on getting their income potential up first before looking at the real estate, stocks, and business game?
So I would say that's a really common myth, that people think I have to be making a lot of money to start investing, whether that's in real estate, stocks, a business, whatever the case may be. And that's not true. There are people, I have met doctors, lawyers, right, who are making six figures and spend six figures. They don't have much. And I've met teachers who are making 40, 50,000 and are wealthy. So that's where my definition of I'd rather be wealthy than be rich, right? Which is what Victor was getting at with the assets. So it really comes down to, what are you doing with the money? I wouldn't say wait until you think that you have enough, because there will always be something else you're spending money on. Take a look at your budget, take a look at your plan, and see, where can I start? You don't have to have $1,000 or $10,000 or $100,000 to start somewhere.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Esther, I'm curious, who asked that question? I can't see the chat. I'm on my phone, but that's a very good question.
I think it was Uche.
Uche. Okay. So, I mean, spot on. I completely agree with what Kofo is saying, right? So the best time to invest was 30 years ago. The second best time is today, right? So, you know, a, a lot of things about investing in money is not usually the amount you do, it's time. Compound interest is the biggest force of wealth building, right? So the earlier you start, the better off you are. Time robs you of big time. I mean, there's a saying that if I give you a 30-day project, Esther, and I say, hey, at the end of 30 days, I will either give you $1 million, or starting from day one, I will give you a penny. And day two, I will give you 2 pennies. I'll double it. And so this is a penny, right? And day three, I will give you 4 pennies. And day four, I'll give you 8 pennies. I'm doubling it every day, right? Which one would you pick? The penny for 30 days? Huh?
The doubling pennies.
Exactly, because you've heard that before. Most like, hey, penny, I'm never gonna get to $1 million in 30 days. Whereas if you did that, you have to end up like $16 million by day 30. That shows the power of compound interest. So starting now, I think there's a research that said, I got mosquitoes here, that that the biggest thing you can do for building wealth is not the rate of return, is not how much you invest, is just investing at all. Just investing at all and starting early is the biggest thing. Now, that being said, I like that question because it's a double part question. Income is also very important. I believe at the early stages, income will get you rich, not investing. But once you're rich, then investing will get you wealthy. It's extremely difficult to build a very high net worth if you have a very low income. It's possible, but it's very difficult. So I tell people, you want to be in a career field or in a job that you have almost an unlimited income potential. If your goal is to get rich, rich or getting wealthy is not everyone's goal. It's not the only thing it's not the only important thing in life. Some people like the stability of a job and just want to just chill like that, which is very good, right? I mean, the ultimate goal is to be happy. However, though, if getting rich is your goal, you want a job where you can maybe get some bonuses involved, where you can actually exponentially increase your income potential versus being on a linear scale. So whether it's been starting a business, getting a job where you're on commission basis, or getting a job where you have salary plus bonuses, depending on your preference, you want a job or an income potential that will grow exponentially.
I agree with Victor, and I'll say that one thing that he said that was really key is it depends on your goal. You really have to figure out, what is it that I want, not what is society telling me, not what is everybody else doing, but figure out what is your goal, what are you trying to achieve, and then you work from there. So like he said, it's not always about the amount that you start with, it's the consistency, the time, and the discipline.
So I have a question, I guess for Kofo, or if Victor wants to chime in. With everything, thank you, Mutia. Thank you for joining.
Take care, you all.
Going on with COVID, and for people that maybe they do have a savings or they do have cash, and they're trying to decide, should I save this money? Should I buy some real estate? Should I put it in the stock market? Should I put it in my 401k? What would you recommend, just in general, where people should be investing their money, or should they be saving their money? How do you direct them in that? I know sometimes it's personal, I guess to individual goals, but what do you typically recommend to your clients?
Yeah, so you kind of answered it for me. It's always personal. It's always very situational because it depends on what they're doing, right? If you're working in a career field, if you're in oil and gas, as an example, you might want to have a year's worth of savings. or an emergency fund. If you are a single income household, you might need a bigger emergency fund. So it really depends on what are you trying to accomplish? What is your income? How might you be affected by COVID, right? Or this pandemic? So you might want to save even more. And then let's say that you do have an adequate savings account. It depends on your other goals. Are you trying to buy property sometime soon? Maybe put it into real estate. Are you behind on retirement? This might be a really good time to start catching up. There's so many different vehicles and avenues that it's not one size fits all. It really depends on the individual person. What is it that you're trying to accomplish? So I start with goals first and work backwards from there. You could put it towards debt. If you have debt, probably pay off your debt. If it's high interest, is a really good place to start. And then you talk to somebody and say, hey, this is what I'm trying to accomplish. These are my goals. Where then do you recommend that I put it? You don't want to make a move like locking it up for retirement if you actually need that money in the next 3 years. Might not be the best avenue. So it depends.
Thank you. And I guess for Victor to kind of piggyback off that, what are some, I know you were talking about investing. What are some vehicles that someone could invest in that you could chime in about?
Okay, yeah. So just like what Kofo said, it's very personal for everyone. I'm definitely not a financial advisor, so I gotta be very careful what I say. But I'm just gonna talk about what the way I think of investing, and if I have some cash right now, what would I invest in? I would first recommend that you only invest in things that you truly understand. So try to learn about it. Don't just give your money to someone and say, hey, invest it for me. You can still have them help you invest, but learn about it, understand why you're investing in that. That way you don't lose your nest egg. You've worked very hard for this. So you want to invest in something that you understand. You also want to always be investing because the market is so unpredictable. And I remember when COVID first hit, we all thought we were in for a prolonged recession. And even though we're still in a recession, as you can see, all assets are currently at an all-time high right now. Stock is at an all-time high, real estate is at an all-time high. Even some business valuations are at an all-time high. So always investing is very important. I also believe that when there's uncertainty is when you want to be investing. When there's certainty, when people knows what's going to happen, oftentimes you've missed the boat at that point in time. But I'm going to speak with both sides of my mouth right now, saying that even though I say that, in the way the world is set up right nowadays, there's always going to be some level of uncertainty. There's always going to be some uncertainty. So I tend just to invest regularly, what they call dollar cost averaging in the financial world. Every month, about the amount of money, or every 2 weeks or whatever you can, and just leave it there. Investment is supposed to be for a long term, 3, 5, 10 years from now. And if you have that approach to your investments, you'll be good no matter what.
Thank you.
I have a question of Victor, and maybe also Kofo. So I have my own house, and I've put some of my old 401k money into self-directed IRAs. So what I want to ask about is residential investment properties. How does one get into that? And how different is it to get financing for an investment property as opposed to your, first house or your homestead home? How is it easier? How much money do I need to have? What percentage down? What's special about getting a residential investment property?
I think this is right in my alley. So when you say residential investment property, do you mean apartments or do you mean single family house for investments?
Amen to apartments, but no, I'm not there. So yes, single family home.
Okay, all right. Okay, so it's very similar. So I think the question is, how do you get a financing for it, correct?
Mm-hmm. And how much do I have to plan to have and all that?
Got it. So it's very similar to buying it for your own personal use. The only difference is that lenders want you to have 20% down payment for that. So whereas the primary use, you can have 0% down, 3.5% down, 5% down, whatever the case is. So the big difference is that you need to have 20% down payments to do that. Now, personal opinion, I think of residential investing differently from most people, even as a broker. I see residential investing primarily as a store of wealth, just holding the money there until you have enough residential homes to buy a multifamily or a commercial of some sort. I don't personally think residential rental properties are very profitable. I think they come with a lot of headache, and the returns are not as lucrative as people think it is. So it's very weird when people call me that they want to buy a house for investment, and I talk them out of it. They're like, well, what are you doing? You know, don't you want to make money? Like, I do, but I want you to think of it in the right way, right? And the reason why I'm saying that is because money gets bored. Money has to be employed. I'm very cash poor. I don't keep a lot of cash around because I invest it. And if you have the cash handy and you don't employ it, you're gonna wake up a year later and half of it will have been gone, and you won't know what happened. You've been in camp. You're gonna have a very good was it story? Is that what it is? Very fun story. Is that what they call it, Kofo? Like social media stories. You're gonna have a lot of fun spending the money, but you won't know. Sorry. you basically, money gets bored, and if you have it in an account, it's gonna walk away, and you won't know what happened. So since doing apartments and commercial takes a large amount of capital, 200 grand, 300 grand to start, it's really hard to save that much without losing a lot of it along the way. So I say, hey, buy a residential home, tie that down, buy one every 2 years or so, every year, put 30 grand down every year and buy one. And then 5 years, you have 150K equity plus whatever is appreciated. You can either refinance it or sell it all and then buy a $2 million apartment complex or what have you. So that's how I think of single family residential investment, as a store of wealth versus looking for big returns in those ones. Did that answer your question, Abby?
We can't hear you, Abby.
Yes, of course it had to happen. Yeah, I think that helps. It's just 20% down, but then it's not as lucrative as everybody thinks. You're not getting rich from single family. Okay.
And kind of to piggyback off of Abby's question, what are the different type of real estate investments?
Oh boy, that's a lot. That's a lot of them. So obviously, you can buy it for your own personal use. So that's more of an asset versus an investment. It's not paying you. You're paying it, but it's an appreciating asset. There's this residential home for rental. They have apartment complexes. They have retail, which is like a shopping complex, shopping mall. They have industrial park, office buildings, storage warehouses. And then they also have ways where you can invest with a private equity company or invest with a syndication, right? So a syndication essentially is Abby knows a lot about real estate. She's raising money to buy a big apartment complex, and she has $1 million of her own money. We all pitching 50 grand. She's the general partner. She runs the deal, and we all make good return. That's a syndication. They have all of those around, but typically they want you to have a net worth of over $1 million before you can invest in a syndication. They also have what they call Reits, real estate investment trusts. And some of them are public, some of them are private. The public ones trade on the stock exchange. You can buy them on like a stock, right? They have those. They have also mortgage notes. You can invest in mortgage notes. Basically, Abby, Esther, and in case you have a lot of money and they want to be a bank, they want to lend their own money. So they come to me, my mortgage company, and say, okay, I can help you find borrowers and they will pay you 6% returns. So Kofo wants to buy a house. Say, Kofo, your credit stinks. However, I have this Abby and Esther. They have this company called Abester LLC, and you like that, Abby? I'm gonna copyright it. I see you. Yeah.
Do it, Abby.
They got Abester financing. They will borrow this money at 7% interest rates. So a lot of people actually do that. I have a lot of Chinese investors that do that, and we help them find borrowers. And a lot of borrowers that are self-employed don't pay taxes, so they don't have good income on the tax returns, so they can't get a traditional loan. So I pair them with Abester, and Abester will give them a loan at 7% interest rate and make very good money. And it's pretty safe money because you make them put down 35% down. If they don't pay you, you take their house with 35% equity. If they pay you, you get 7% interest rates. Either way, Abester is winning as usual.
Did you say 7 or 70?
Abester. She's ready to invest. 7%. She's like, it's like 70%. I'm in. No, well, typically we have a private lender that we pair some of our tough to find borrowers that's very tough to find loans for right now, and they charge them between 8 and 9%, depending on how risky it is, which is pretty solid because this is consistent, and they have a lien on the house. This is 8 or 9% with a collateral involved. That's pretty good returns.
We have a question in the chat from Nkechi. She says, for a young professional or someone who has not been actively investing, but rather has high liquidity and is relatively young in their 20s, would you recommend aggressive, more high-risk investments? I know you've touched on personal goals, but if you could advise a young person, what direction would you steer them to catch up?
To catch up, you in your 20s, you got time. That's there's not much you have to catch up on.
That's true.
Yeah, I mean, it depends. So you guys know, like I said, I have a lot of licenses. Got to be real careful with how I give advice because one thing might be good for one person and not good for somebody else, even of the same age. So with that, when you say catch up, my question would be for what? What are you trying to do? So if it's for retirement, then you should put it in a retirement account, maybe a Roth IRA. Get that tax-free growth in there. Make sure you're taking care of the employer match. Fund more into your 401k. Are you looking to buy a house? That's a whole different investment. Maybe it shouldn't be as aggressive because you have less time. So you do want to see what is the time horizon, which is how long do you want this money to be investing for? It really does depend on what your goals are. My direction is figure out what you're trying to do with it. And from there, it can be high risk. Just know that, like Victor said before, the stock market's unpredictable. Nobody can tell you what's going to happen tomorrow or next week or next year. The longer time you have, the better off you are. So being young, just start. Put your money in the market, put your money into real estate. If it's business, know what you're doing, get a plan in place, but ultimately figure out your goal and that will guide where your money should be.
That's a good one. So that's a very good question. That's from Nkechi, right?
Yes.
That's a good question. So just like Kofo said, I'm not a financial advisor, so I don't think I'm qualified to give advice in that. But I can tell you my own personal philosophy on that. I am very risk averse. I don't like risk. Whether I'm 20 years old, 50 years old, 60, it doesn't matter. There's a saying by Warren Buffett, which, if you don't know him, is regarded to be one of the best investors of all time, that the first rule of investing is never lose money. The second rule of investing is go back and check rule number 1. You didn't never lose money. I believe that going back really, really hurts your investment portfolio when you keep losing money and going back. So when people say you're young, be aggressive, they are forgetting the part of aggressiveness also equals risk, and risk is real. You can actually lose money. So I'm personally very careful when it comes to that. I'll give you an analogy, right? I don't care if you are the best, let me just say, soccer team in the world. If every time you score a goal, the referee takes 2 goals away from you, it'd be very hard for you to beat even me and Esther and Abby on a field, right? Because every 2 steps, you're making 2 steps forward and you take 1 step backwards. So my personal opinion, which is not advice, is that I'm very risk averse. I like to take calculated investment decision that I know that I have a very high chance of success versus just throwing money in the dark, throwing money out there because I'm young enough to recover.
So that brings up a good point.
That?
Yeah. And that's where you want to do a risk tolerance questionnaire. That's something that I do with all my clients. It doesn't matter how old you are. I have met people, to Victor's point, who are in their 20s that are very aggressive. I have some 20-year-old clients who are conservative. They don't care. They don't want to lose any money. And that's what is going to guide your position, not how behind you feel, because it's just a feeling. You want to make sure that when the risk comes, because downtimes will happen, you aren't losing sleep at night. So if you're actually not an aggressive person, don't invest like one because everybody else is saying, oh, you're young, you have time, be aggressive. You have to go with you in your own personal, feelings.
Okay. And the reason why I asked that is I've had a few young professionals who have, come to me for advice. And there's an ongoing philosophy of, the younger you are, the more you should take this, aggressive type investments because you have the time to recover from them if, say, there's failure. And even when, like all these, these 401ks that are kind of like, computerized. I'm going to use the word computerized, but the ones that they use AI, and it does the investment.
The target date fund. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's right. So, the older you are, the less, more predictable investments they tend to move you into. And so I find it difficult to guide, these individuals when they say, how much risk should I take? I'm just 2 years in, 3 years in, I'm making 6 figures, I'm just saving my money, how much risk? So that's why I asked that question.
The best answer for them is you should meet with the financial advisor. Insert shameless plug for myself, but everybody's situation is different. That's really what it comes down to. And you don't want to tell one person, oh yeah, be aggressive, and they're a conservative person. When the market does what it did in March, they're going to be losing sleep. They're going to be having heart attacks. Whereas I have people who are like, yeah, that's cool. On to the next one.
Yeah, but then there are lots of young individuals who made a ton of money when they bought, the discounted stock early on in the year. So I have a second question. This is for Victor. So Victor, you talked about real estate trusts and that sometimes you would guide some of your clients towards investing in those. What is your outlook on those types of investments, both the public and the private REITs that are out there, based on the fact that with the pandemic, commercial properties, the outlook doesn't look very good. Most people are working from home. Even multi-residence type investments, people can't even make their rent. What is your outlook on that?
Okay, so I'm gonna answer that question a little bit with exactly what Kofo just said about the risk tolerance. It depends on your risk tolerance, and people lost a lot of money during the beginning of COVID. So the thing is, no one knows what the future is. I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, quite frankly, if I asked you in March what's your outlook, in April, you will be 100% wrong because no one saw COVID coming, right? And the same thing if I ask you in March when COVID happened, what's your outlook in June? No one saw that rebound that we're going to be at an all-time high again in stock market. So what we do know is that we're always going to get the future wrong 100% of the time. Now, so I don't judge too much on the result you got, especially on the short-term basis. I judge based on the soundness of why you're making that decision. Is it a sound decision when you're making it? Because because the variables, it's just so uncertain. We don't know what's going to happen next month. We don't even know who's going to win the election, right? And that's going to affect anything, right? So, so that being said, I believe in real estate. I mean, I think there've been pandemics before in the past. People have predicted the end of real estate a long time ago. People have predicted the end of really the economy. Like they have the industrial revolution, the automation revolution. In 2008, when we had the last big recession, people thought it was over. The dollar was over. All the jobs are being shipped overseas. You have automation. You don't need human employment anymore. And then fast forward later, we had a 4% unemployment. So I think, like I said earlier, always be investing. And I think when there's uncertainty, you can still look for those gems and take advantage of it. So a lot of people think that the commercial real estate office spaces are pretty much gone. Everyone is working from home in the near future, the next year or two. I don't think so. I think it presents an opportunity for us to buy the real big discounts. And then when things come back, which it will come back, people have it. I don't think, I can hire Kofo to work at Prudential and then have her not come to the office for 2 years. There's a lot of training, a lot of culture that you miss when it comes to that. Maybe you could, but I don't think it's sustainable. I think eventually people will go back to being in buildings and offices and those kind of things. That's my prediction. And I'm investing as such. So I think it's a great time to snatch up discounts, people that are fearful of that. And then you can capitalize on that going forward.
Talk a little bit about insurance. Because I know when I first finished undergrad, I did get linked up with a financial advisor, and that's why I have all the insurance I have now. I probably need to look at it again and make sure it's still appropriate. But I do find all too often that people that I know are not similarly set up. So can you talk about what type of insurance people should get at what ages? What type of insurance people can pitch to us that's useless? What we should do for like our parents? What type of insurance we should get when we have our first kid, etc.
Great question, especially in our community. I'll start with the one that's useless, mostly through work. If you hear somebody selling you accidental death and dismemberment, don't get it. That's the one. So accidental death and dismemberment means you have to die by accident for it to pay out, or you have to lose a whole leg or a whole arm before it pays out. Anything that has stipulations like that, I'm not doing it. So to even tell you guys, like an example, I met someone whose dad had passed away and he had a lot of life insurance, but none of it paid out. Why? Because he died of a heart attack. And what did he have? Accidental death and dismemberment. They'll tell you it's really cheap, you should get it. It's a waste of money. I don't care if it's $2, I'm not getting it. Unless it's free, then, go ahead. So the types of insurances that you do want to get, of course, first and foremost, health insurance. A lot of people, business owners, don't like to get health insurance. That is the number one risk. Medical bills add up. So definitely get health insurance. If you get sick, you don't want to have to deal with that. The second thing is disability insurance. We've talked about assets. Your greatest asset is you. If you do not make money, if you do not bring in income, this conversation is pointless. You can't invest anything. Everything you set up, you're going to have to take out your investments. You're going to have to beg people for money. You're going to go into debt. So please get disability insurance. That protects your income and makes sure that no matter what, you still have a paycheck coming in. The next thing is life insurance. And that just protects your life, right? That's something that you can use to leave a legacy. Generational wealth. We talk about wanting to build generational wealth for people. When you look at the people in America that have done that, it's life insurance. It's the only way that you can pass on money tax-free to your loved ones. There's multiple types of life insurances, so speak with an educated professional about that, and we can have a separate conversation if needed. The other one, and one that you really touched on for parents, is long-term care. So part of the reason that I got into this business is because of the fact that, I'm an immigrant. I'm the only child, which is very rare in the African community, but I know that if my parents ever go through something, I'm it. They have not planned for retirement. If they get sick, I'm not putting them in a home. My mother will put me in a home before I put her in a home. But it's expensive to take care of those. Those nurses to come into the house cost like $4,000 to $6,000 a month. That's not cheap, right? And that's my retirement that's at risk. So you want to look at long-term care insurance for your parents. It does get expensive, so the earlier the better. But the cost of paying for that insurance is so much less than the cost of paying for a nurse or a nursing home when it's all said and done. The other question that you asked, because it was a loaded question, was the earliest that you should get it, or when should you get it, at what ages? The earlier the better. When it comes to these insurances, the main factors are your age and your health. As we get older, what happens to our health? It goes down. And chances are, if you wait too long or your health isn't good, you might not be able to get it at all. It doesn't matter how rich you are. The insurance company is like, you're a liability to us, you're a risk, we're not covering you. So the younger you are, the better off. The healthier you are, the better off. Don't procrastinate. It's COVID. We're in a pandemic. Anything can happen. And truthfully, the insurance companies are starting to get more expensive because of COVID. So.
Awesome, thank you.
You're welcome.
And I was even gonna say about the difference of life insurance. And just to piggyback off of Abby's question, I know that, there's a lot of comorbidities that people don't even think about. Like, for example, being overweight. A lot of people are overweight, and you don't even have to be 40, 50 years old. But if you're like 25 and you're overweight, then some places won't even insure you.
Yep.
Or it's just going to be exponential, the amount of money they're going to charge you. So I know for myself, who knows if you're going to gain 20 pounds, in a couple of years. Another thing about for women too is a lot of women get complications during pregnancy, and that is considered
a disability
condition or disability. Some people that have gestational diabetes or high blood pressure when they're pregnant, and they were perfectly healthy before, and they were young, and then they got pregnant, and then they started having health issues during the pregnancy. Even after they had their baby and they're perfectly healthy, I know some people that got disqualified for health insurance because of that too. So I agree with what Kofo was saying about not waiting too long, because even if you're young, you can still have health issues like that.
Yeah, and I'll say you never know. I actually had someone who got declined for disability insurance because of issues she had with pregnancy. She's perfectly fine. Her husband's a doctor. She's a nurse. She's like, no, I'm good. But to the company, sorry, you had this issue. We're not taking you at all. So you don't want to wait, especially for women with disability insurance. We have things that men just don't go through. We are becoming more and more in control of our income. You need to get it, or at least look into it. And something else that Abby mentioned, if you do have insurance products, if you're not working with a good advisor, you do need to review them at least once a year. I meet with my clients once a year because your life is changing. What you got when you were 20 or 25 years old might not fit you when you're in your 30s or your 40s. You want to make sure that stuff is up to date. You have the right beneficiaries before it goes to an ex-husband or somebody that you don't want it to go to. So just make sure that everything still fits in with your life, because your life is changing.
Wow, that's great. Absolutely. I didn't think about that. So I'm not an expert in the insurance world. I think Kofo definitely is. However, my philosophy is that if you have anyone that depends on your income, then you need life insurance. So if you have a parent or kid or anyone that depends on your income, your spouse or whatever, you need life insurance. Once you start gathering a lot of assets, you have a house, you have 2 houses, you have a company like Abesta, whatever it is, then you want to start thinking of estate planning. And maybe Kofo can talk about estate planning as well. That's one of the big difference, that how we don't get to pass on our generational wealth. You build all this wealth, and then you have no estate planning, you pass away, and then the court decides who gets your assets. So I think once you start having anything, a house or thereabout, you need an estate planning, and the Kofo will talk more about that. And then I never even thought about, I never thought about how often you should review your estate plan and your life insurance. That's very important because we see that I've seen that a lot in being a military officer, where there's a lot of spouse, a lot of divorces. You pass away, you don't know, and you think your new wife with your 4 kids is getting your life insurance, but no, your first wife that's crazy that you met while you were on shore patrol or whatever in some kind of crazy place gets all your life insurance because you never changed, never updated your life insurance. I actually had, this was pretty weird, it's a good story of a young lady that bought a home with her mom, and her mom and her dad were never married. So never married, bought a home with her mom. Well, the young lady passed away, and then the mom wanted to sell the house. Abby, you're following? Okay, the young lady passed away. The mom wanted to sell the house, but she couldn't sell the house because the dead daughter's half of the house, that half is shared by her mom and her dad. Her dad had nothing to do with the house, didn't even know they had a house. So they had to call the dad, say, hey, will you relinquish your own half or your own quarter, which is half of your daughter's stuff? He said, hell no, it's my daughter's stuff, I want it, you know? So the mom was pissed off, and it was a mess, right? Because they didn't do a good estate planning. So Kofo, maybe Kofo can talk more about the estate planning and life insurance.
Africans definitely do it. Don't do estate planning. People will always be fighting over which wife is getting away.
They don't. Nope. Nobody wants to plan for their death, but it's gonna come. So it's a conversation that we need to have more and more, especially with our parents, right? These are the things that end up affecting us. So I'm not a lawyer. I can't draft up a will for anybody or an estate plan, but it's part of the beneficiaries. Like I said, making sure that you are updating them, knowing who gets what, who you want to get what. And part of the estate planning, as Victor had mentioned, actually, people who have really high net worth, as we are all aspiring to be, they use life insurance for estate planning because it's the only way that you can pass it on tax-free or take care of estate taxes. That's a whole separate conversation, but there's different advanced planning that we could talk about in the future.
Hey, Kofo, Pascal just sent me a text that he takes offense to that use of aspiring to be high net worth. He takes offense to that word aspiring. So just to let you know.
So
Pascal. Go ahead.
Yeah, we have a question. So there's a lot of chatter and talk about the interest.
Sorry, I've been on mute listening to you guys.
Don't worry. Don't worry. I let her know you took offense to that word of aspiring high net worth.
We all get there. Right? Fake it until you make it.
I got your back, Pascal. You know, men's club. We got to stick together.
Wow.
I appreciate that.
There's a couple of other guys on here. But I was going to ask you, there's a lot of chatter about the real estate market and the interest rate being lower. And a lot of people are trying to refinance. A lot of people are trying to buy homes. What is your take on the lending practices now? Is it harder to get these loans? Is it harder to refinance? Is it easier to buy a home now? Could you talk about that?
Yeah, so I don't think it's harder. I think we actually have a very good balance on getting a loan. You know, we don't want the loan. We don't want what happened before 2008, where you know a stripper had 40 homes, and you don't need to prove any employment. Just take a picture of you in front of Google and say, "Hey, I work over there," and send to the underwriter, and they give you a loan, right? So things have changed now. So, however, rates are very, very low. So you're paying less for the same amount of property or same amount of loan, right? So your cost of borrowing is much lower now. We did a loan recently for 2.25% interest rate for someone, and we have something as low as 1.875. But essentially, you're pretty much getting free money. So it's a great time to think of refinancing. If you want to just talk about refinancing mortgages, give me a call. My number is 832-788-1782. If you can use a chat, please let me tap my number in there. Yes, it's 832-788-1782.
Is it possible to put that in the chat as well? Because some of us are driving.
Yeah, there you go. I best start
Thank you, Abby.
doing that. No, but it's a so if you have interest rates over 4%, you should really think about refinancing it. Now, my rule of thumb is you want to save 1% or more, 1% or more on your interest rate reduction. And so if you call me, I'm a good loan broker, and I will tell you if it's not worth you refinancing or if it's worth you refinancing. So, for example, if you go to Avesta and they give you a loan at 3%, and your savings is $100 a month, but the cost of that loan is $12,000 for you, which means it's going to take you, what is that? So if you save $100 a month, $12,000, it's going to take you forever to make up that savings. So you want to make sure that whatever you save in reduction in payment by the lower interest rate, you're covering the cost of the refinance in under 2 years. It's a cost to refinance. According to statistics, Americans will either refinance, sell, do whatever to our house. We move every 5 to 7 years. So you want to make sure that the refinance makes sense for you. And the loan officers in our company will educate you, will help you, but will not help you off a cliff. Will only help you if it benefits you. And I saw someone that sent a message earlier that what is the interest rate that the person that got a low interest rate got? Don't worry about it. Your interest is not what was the credit score they said? What was the credit score, right? Your credit score is not good enough, so I'm never gonna worry. Don't worry about it. Is that Nkechi that said that?
That was me.
Who was you?
That was Nkechi. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Don't worry about that. Don't ask questions that will make you depressed.
Okay.
No, I'm kidding. So obviously, the higher your credit score is, the better your interest rates. So usually, want to be something over 700. Is Nkechi still on the line? Did she hang up? Nkechi, are you still there? So, no.
I am.
Okay.
I'm looking for less than 2%.
I thought that 700 credit score just dropped you off. No, over 700 generally you want to have, but people the high 600s, 700, but the higher it is, the better your interest rate is. The ones that are under 2%, in case, just be very careful. Like I said, make sure that it's not loaded with fees and costs, and make sure that the savings in the monthly payment is worth the cost to get up front. So if you call me tomorrow, we can help you figure something out that works.
And then, Kofo, if you can also put your information in the chat too.
I sure will.
What is that, Kofo? There's a face, a smiley face on your screen. What is that?
I have no idea. I don't know how I did that.
I like it.
Does anyone have any other questions? Okay. And any rounding remarks?
Okay, well, I'll just say, if this is the end, thank you guys. I really, really appreciate the opportunity to speak at NAMC. I want to be more involved in NAMC as a member, but I really admire everyone on this platform. I know most of you, either in person or on social media, you guys are all doing good things, making us proud as Africans. Way to go, Esther. Way to go, Abby. I see you with all the big people in Houston and everyone in KT Pascal, the NAMC. Just thank you for what you guys do. I really, really appreciate it. Please get our men more involved. Every time I go out to these things, all I see is women. I don't know what's going on. But thank you all. Thanks for the invite. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And before everyone logs off, please put in your email registered for the event. You want to join NAMC, just go ahead and register there and go to the website, join NAMC. Membership dues are just $50 and it's tax deductible. So that's very cheap. Anybody else have any questions?
I want to say thank you as well for the invitation. It feels good to come full circle from where I feel like I started my career and just being able to be that resource. Most of my clients, probably 95% are Nigerian. So this is what I do it for. And if you guys have any questions, hit me up.
And thank you. The only reason I'm rounding up so quickly because I know some of our speakers have prior engagement. So that's why I wanted to respect their time. Thank you very much.
Oh, one last thing. I'm sorry, guys. So I host a monthly happy hour of business people getting together and share ideas. Kofo has been there several times, and she's actually one of our founders. She helped me find the location. So Kofo, I'm not sure what the next one is. We've not done one in a while due to COVID, but we might do a virtual one. But I'll be asking Kofo to reach out to you guys. You will really enjoy it. Shameless plug, I guess.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you all. Have a good one.
Thank you, Kofo. Thank you, Victor.
Bye. Good night.
Bye.
Thank you, Uche.